Aaron had spent 40 cycles as an archivist for the collective. His job was simple. He watched other species and wrote down what he learned. He had documented hundreds of civilizations across the galaxy. Some were peaceful traders. Others were violent conquerors. Most fell somewhere in between. When humanity first appeared on the galactic stage, Aaron was assigned to study them. The High Council wanted to know if these newcomers from a small blue planet called Earth would be friends or enemies. What Aaron discovered confused him deeply. Humans were predators. Their bodies told this story clearly. They had forward-facing eyes designed for hunting. Their muscles were dense and powerful. Their bones were thick and hard to break. Tests showed that humans could run for hours without stopping, chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Their immune systems fought off infections that would kill most species. They healed from injuries that should have been fatal. By every measure, humans were built for violence. But they did not act like predators. They arrived in space with open hands and warm smiles. Their first ambassador, a tall man named Daniel, spent 3 years learning the language. He did not use translation devices during official meetings. He spoke directly to the council in their own tongue, making small mistakes that made the elders laugh with fondness rather than mockery. Daniel brought gifts, not weapons or demands, but medicine. Human doctors had developed treatments for diseases that had plagued them for generations. They shared these treatments freely, asking nothing in return. When Aaron asked Daniel why humans would give away such valuable knowledge, the ambassador simply shrugged. "Neighbors help neighbors," Daniel said. "That is how communities grow strong." The humans sent agricultural experts to struggling colonies. A woman named Susan Park taught farmers new techniques that doubled their crop yields. She lived among the colonists for 2 years, eating their food, learning their songs, and playing with their children. When she finally returned to human space, the entire colony gathered to see her off. Many wept. Commander Lisa of the human vessel Endeavor became a familiar sight in territory. Her ship was a warship, bristling with weapons that could destroy a small moon. But Lisa did not use these weapons for conquest. She used her ship to escort refugee convoys from the border conflict. Thousands of displaced owed their lives to her protection. Lisa's crew adopted orphaned children. Aaron visited the Endeavor once and found human sailors teaching young how to play something called basketball. The children laughed as they tried to throw a ball through a hoop. A massive human engineer named Price lifted a small girl onto his shoulders so she could reach the basket. The joy on her face was something Aaron would never forget. Worked 18 hours straight one day to repair failing atmospheric processors on a mining station. Without those repairs, 3,000 workers would have suffocated. When the station administrator tried to pay for his work, the engineer refused. "Just pass it on," said. "Help someone else when you get the chance." They began calling humans the gentle giants. These powerful beings from a distant world had chosen kindness over conquest. They built hospitals instead of military bases. They shared knowledge instead of hoarding it. They made friends instead of subjects. Aaron wrote report after report describing human generosity. He documented their laughter, their music, their strange habit of forming deep emotional bonds with other species. He noted how human children played with children as if there were no differences between them. He observed how human soldiers, trained killers by profession, spent their leave time volunteering at orphanages and medical clinics. The Galactic Assembly welcomed humanity with open arms. Here was a species that proved advanced civilizations did not need to be cruel. Here was hope that the galaxy might someday know lasting peace. But not everyone saw humans the same way. The Dominion had conquered 11 civilizations through brutality and terror. Their empire stretched across an entire quadrant of the galaxy. High Warlord ruled with absolute authority, crushing any hint of rebellion with overwhelming force. They believed that strength was the only true virtue, mercy was weakness, compassion was foolishness, Only the strong deserve to survive. Watched humanity's expansion with growing contempt. He saw their kindness as evidence of a soft species hiding behind advanced technology. He noted how they refused to take territory by force, how they negotiated instead of demanded, how they helped weaker species instead of enslaving them. In philosophy, such behavior was shameful. A species with humanity's military potential should be carving out an empire, not building schools and hospitals for aliens. Concluded that humans were cowards pretending to be civilized. Aaron heard these opinions during a diplomatic summit. He approached the adjutant and tried to offer a warning. He told about human history. He described their world wars, conflicts that had killed hundreds of millions of their own kind. He explained that humans had developed nuclear weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. He mentioned their long tradition of martial arts, military strategy, and organized violence. The adjutant laughed in his face. "You have been fooled by their act," they said. "These humans play at being gentle because they fear true warriors. When they face real strength, they will crumble like all soft species do." Aaron tried to argue, but they walked away. The archivist felt a cold dread settling in his stomach. He had studied humans closely for years. He had seen their kindness, yes, but he had also glimpsed something else. Something that lurked beneath the surface of their warm smiles. Humans loved deeply. They formed bonds with family and friends that shaped their entire existence. They would sacrifice anything for the people they cared about. This capacity for love was beautiful. But Aaron understood something that did not. The same hearts that loved so deeply could also hate with equal intensity. The same hands that healed the sick could also destroy everything they touched. The same minds that created art and music could also design weapons of terrible power. Humans were not weak, they had simply chosen to be kind. And Aaron feared what would happen if someone forced them to make a different choice. He filed his concerns with the High Council, but they dismissed his worries. They would not be foolish enough to provoke humanity, they said. Even would see that war with such an advanced species would be costly. The council was wrong. High Warlord had already begun planning his attack. He believed a quick, brutal strike would force humanity to submit. He would show the galaxy that humans were no different from any other soft species. They would beg for mercy, and he would grant it in exchange for their submission. Chose his target carefully, a small agricultural colony on a planet called 442b, 12,000 human civilians, farmers, teachers, children, no military presence worth mentioning. An easy target, a clear message. The warlord gave the order, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The fleet arrived at 442b just before dawn. 12 warships descended through the clouds like metal demons, their weapons already charging. The colony had no defenses worth mentioning. A few security officers with small arms. An old patrol ship that had not fired its weapons in years. Nothing that could stop what was coming. Aaron was stationed on an observation post 3 systems away when the first distress signal came through. The message was broken and filled with static, but the fear in the sender's voice was unmistakable. "This is Colony calling anyone who can hear. We are under attack. Forces are landing in the agricultural district. Please send help, please. There are children here." The transmission cut out. For 17 terrible minutes, there was only silence. Then they began broadcasting. High Warlord wanted the galaxy to witness his victory. He ordered his soldiers to record everything and transmit it on all channels. What Aaron saw on that broadcast would haunt him until his dying day. They did not simply attack the colony. They methodically slaughtered every living thing they found. Soldiers moved through the streets in organized squads, burning homes and executing anyone who tried to flee. They did not distinguish between armed defenders and unarmed civilians. They did not spare the elderly or the sick. They did not spare the children. Aaron watched a human family running through burning streets, a father carrying his young son, a mother pulling her daughter by the hand. Soldiers appeared ahead of them and opened fire. The family fell together, still reaching for each other. The broadcast showed warriors laughing as they dragged bodies through the dirt. Officers posed for recordings beside piles of human dead. One commander held up a child's toy and made jokes about how easily humans died. The killing lasted for 6 hours. They took their time. They wanted maximum suffering. They wanted the galaxy to see what happened to species they considered weak. The final transmission came from a woman named Cole. She was the colony administrator, a former teacher who had helped build the settlement from nothing. She had hidden in a basement with 17 survivors when the attack began. For hours, she kept them quiet and calm, promising that help would come. But no help came in time. Aaron listened to his last message. Her voice was steady even as soldiers broke through the basement door. She spoke directly to her husband, a naval officer named Peter who was stationed on a military vessel 3 systems away. Peter, I love you. I have always loved you. Please do not let this break you. Please remember that I died believing in everything we built together. Take care of yourself. Take care of our friends. And Peter, make them understand that we were not weak. We chose to be kind. There is a difference. The sounds of weapons fire ended the transmission. Commander Peter Cole received that message aboard the battleship Retribution. The crew reported that he listened to it 3 times without speaking. Then he walked to his quarters and did not emerge for 2 hours. When Peter finally stepped back onto the bridge, his face showed no emotion at all. He simply asked his communications officer to connect him with Fleet Command. His voice was perfectly calm. His hands did not shake. But something in his eyes had changed forever. News of the massacre spread across human space within hours. Every news channel showed the broadcast. Families gathered around screens and watched in horror as their fellow humans were slaughtered. Parents covered their children's eyes but could not look away themselves. The human government convened an emergency session. Representatives from every nation and colony gathered to decide how to respond. Aaron expected debates about negotiation strategies and diplomatic protests. He expected arguments about proportional responses and international law. He was wrong. Admiral Hayes stood before the assembly. She was a small woman with gray hair and a soft voice. She had spent her career advocating for peaceful exploration and scientific cooperation. She had never wanted to be a warrior. But warriors are not always born. Sometimes they are made. The Dominion has murdered 12,000 of our citizens, said. They have killed our children. They have broadcast their crimes as entertainment for the galaxy. They have made their intentions clear. She paused and Aaron saw something terrible in her eyes. Not anger, something colder, something that did not burn but froze. I move that we declare total war against the Dominion. No negotiations, no treaties, no mercy. The Assembly voted unanimously in favor. President George Martin addressed the human species that evening. He was a quiet man who had built his political career on compromise and peaceful solutions. He had never raised his voice in public debate. He had never spoken words of hatred or revenge. But as he looked into the camera, Aaron saw that George Martin had become someone new, someone forged in the fire of unimaginable loss. To the Dominion, I say this. You have made a terrible mistake. You believed our kindness was weakness. You believed our mercy was cowardice. You believed that murdering our families would make us afraid. George's voice remained calm, but every word carried the weight of a death sentence. You were wrong. We are not afraid. We are angry, and you are about to learn what human anger truly means. He paused, and when he spoke again, his words echoed across every human world. Activate Protocol Omega. Total war authorization granted. Every ship, every soldier, Every weapon we possess is now dedicated to one purpose. The Dominion will pay for what they have done. They will pay in blood and fire and the ashes of everything they have built." George looked directly into the camera. His eyes held no warmth, no pity, no doubt. "May God have mercy on their souls, because we will not." The broadcast ended. Across human space, military bases that had been quiet for years roared to life. Ships that had been mothballed were brought back into service. Soldiers who had retired returned to duty. Factories that made consumer goods switched to producing weapons. Humanity had been poked by a predator who mistook kindness for weakness. Now the predator would learn the truth. Aaron watched these events unfold with growing dread. He had tried to warn them. He had tried to explain that humans were not soft prey waiting to be conquered, but no one had listened. Now it was too late for warnings. The giant had awakened, and its wrath would shake the foundations of the galaxy. In the 3 days following the massacre, humanity mobilized the largest military force the Galactic Assembly had ever seen. Over 10,000 warships, 2 million ground troops, weapons that had been kept secret for generations. The gentle giants were gone. Something else had taken their place. And it was coming for the High Warlord received reports of human mobilization with amusement. He had expected some response to his attack on 442B, perhaps a few skirmishes along the border, perhaps angry diplomatic protests, perhaps even a limited strike against an outer colony. He was prepared for all of these possibilities. His military advisors had calculated every scenario. The Dominion controlled the largest fleet in the quadrant. 12,000 orbital defense platforms protected their core worlds. 300 capital ships stood ready to repel any invasion. Ground forces numbering in the billions waited to crush any landing attempt. Was confident that humanity would see these numbers and choose negotiation over war. Even if they attacked, the conflict would be long and costly. Eventually, the humans would grow tired of losing ships and soldiers. They would accept a treaty that recognized superiority. The galaxy would learn its lesson. The warlord gathered his generals in the great war room of Prime. Maps showed their defensive positions across the empire. Red lights marked the locations of their fleets. Everything was in order. "The humans will come," told his officers. "Let them break themselves against our defenses. When they have lost enough blood, they will beg for peace, and we will grant it at a price." His generals nodded in agreement. None of them understood what was coming. Aaron was aboard a diplomatic vessel near the border when the human fleet arrived. The ship's sensors detected them first as a distant energy signature, then as thousands of individual contacts, then as something that comprehension. The human armada emerged from faster-than-light travel like a storm breaking over a mountain. 10,000 warships arranged in perfect formation, carriers twice the size of anything in the fleet, battleships bristling with weapons that made technology look primitive, swarms of fighters that darkened space itself. At the center of the formation flew the flagship Unconditional, a massive vessel that served as Admiral Burke's mobile command center. Was a veteran of 3 human conflicts and had never lost a battle. His face appeared on every communication channel, addressing them directly. "You wanted to see what humans are capable of," said. His voice was cold and even. "Watch closely, take notes. Not that it will matter." The transmission ended. The attack began. The outer colonies fell in 6 hours. Human pilots flew their fighters with precision that seemed impossible. They weaved through defensive fire, found gaps in shield coverage, and delivered devastating strikes against critical systems. They had never seen anything move so fast with such perfect control. The capital ships were worse. Commanders watched in disbelief as human battleships absorbed hits that should have destroyed them, shrugged off the damage, and returned fire with weapons that cut through armor like paper. Orbital platforms that had stood for centuries were reduced to debris in minutes. 3 colony worlds, 6 hours, complete defeat. But the space battle was only the beginning. Aaron witnessed the ground assault on Prime's largest moon and finally understood why the galaxy should have feared humanity all along. Marine Commander Jack led the first wave. His troops landed in the middle of the strongest defensive position, a fortress that had never been breached in 200 years of warfare. The garrison outnumbered the human attackers 5-1. Every tactical calculation said the assault would fail. The calculations were wrong. Human soldiers moved through enemy fire like ghosts. They did not stop for rest. They did not slow when injured. A medic would treat a wound and the soldier would immediately return to combat. One woman, a sergeant named Bate Tors, continued fighting with a shattered arm. She used her rifle one-handed, hitting targets with perfect accuracy despite her injury. She did not stop until her squad had secured their objective. They had never faced enemies like this. Their warriors were bred for conquest. They expected opponents to break when faced with overwhelming force. They expected fear to spread through enemy ranks like disease. They expected retreat and surrender. Humans did not break. Humans did not run. Humans did not surrender. They just kept coming. Commander Peter Cole personally led the assault on the military command center. His wife had died on 442B. The officers who had ordered that massacre were hiding behind the fortress walls, believing their defenses would protect them. Peter's team breached the facility in 47 minutes. The defenders threw everything they had at the advancing humans: automated turrets, elite guard units, trapped corridors designed to kill anyone who entered. None of it mattered. Peter moved through the fortress like death itself, his face showing no emotion, his movements precise and relentless. His soldiers followed without hesitation. When they reached the command chamber, Peter found the officers responsible for his wife's death. They were huddled in a corner, their weapons empty, their faces showing the first fear they had ever truly known. Peter did not speak to them. There was nothing to say. He simply raised his weapon and ensured they understood exactly why they were dying. The fortress fell. The moon was secured. Human forces moved to their next objective without pause. Across the Dominion, similar stories played out. Human soldiers fought with a fury that explanation. They seemed to feel no fatigue. They seemed to ignore wounds that would incapacitate any other species. They moved as one unit, covering each other, advancing always, never retreating. Aaron interviewed a captured officer after one battle. The officer's hands would not stop shaking. "They are not soldiers," they said. "They are something else, something terrible. I shot one of them 3 times. 3 times. He fell and I thought he was dead. Then he stood up. He looked at me. His eyes held nothing but purpose. He raised his weapon and killed everyone in my squad before medical could reach him." The officer began weeping. How do you fight something like that? How do you defeat enemies who refuse to die? Aaron had no answer. He was beginning to understand that humanity had kept their true nature hidden from the galaxy. They had shown only their kindness, their compassion, their desire for peace. But beneath that gentle surface lay something ancient and unstoppable. Humans were survivors. They had tried to kill them with ice ages, plagues, predators, and natural disasters. They had survived everything. They had clawed their way to the stars through sheer determination and refusal to accept defeat. And when someone threatened what they loved, all of that survival instinct transformed into something terrifying. High Warlord watched his empire crumble with growing horror. Every defensive line fell. Every counterattack was crushed. Every tactical advantage proved meaningless against enemies who simply refused to stop. For the first time in his life, felt fear. He had awakened something that would not rest until everything he had built was destroyed, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. High Warlord attempted to negotiate 3 weeks after the human invasion began. His outer territories had fallen. His fleets were scattered or destroyed. For the first time in history, enemy forces threatened the itself. The warlord sent a message to Admiral Burke offering terms: complete withdrawal from all conquered territories, massive reparations paid to humanity and their allies, weapons limitations that would reduce the military to a fraction of its former strength, public apologies broadcast across the galaxy. It was a surrender in everything but name, was willing to humiliate himself and his entire species to stop what was coming. Admiral Burke's response was a single word: no. Sent another message, offering more concessions. He would step down as warlord. He would submit to human judgment personally. He would give humanity anything they wanted. Burke did not respond at all. The human fleet continued its advance toward Prime. Aaron requested permission to observe the final battle from the command deck of the Unconditional. Admiral Burke granted the request without question. The archivist suspected that Burke wanted someone to document what was about to happen, someone who would tell the galaxy the truth. Prime was beautiful in its own way. Crimson oceans reflected the light of twin suns. Mountain ranges carved by ancient rivers stretched across continents of purple vegetation. 7 billion citizens lived on that world, soldiers and civilians, warriors and children, an entire civilization waiting for judgment. The planet's defenses were formidable even now. Thousands of orbital platforms remained operational. The last surviving capital ships had gathered for a final stand. Ground forces numbering in the billions prepared to repel any landing. Admiral Burke addressed his fleet before the assault. His words were broadcast on all channels, human and alike. The enemy believed our kindness was weakness. They believed our mercy was cowardice. They murdered our families and called it strength. They broadcast the deaths of our children as entertainment. Burke paused. His face showed no anger. It showed nothing at all. That absence of emotion was somehow more frightening than rage. Today, we will teach them the difference between choosing not to fight and being unable to fight. We chose peace. They chose this. Now they will live with the consequences. The orbital battle lasted 12 hours. They threw everything they had at the human fleet. Defense platforms fired until their weapons melted from overuse. Capital ships charged directly at human lines, sacrificing themselves in desperate attempts to break the enemy formation. Fighters launched by the thousands in waves of suicidal attacks. None of it mattered. Human ships moved with perfect coordination, covering each other, concentrating fire on high-value targets, and systematically dismantling the defenses. The carriers launched waves of fighters that swarmed enemy positions like angry insects. The battleships advanced steadily, absorbing punishment and delivering death with every shot. One by one, the orbital platforms fell silent. The capital ships became debris fields. The fighters that had launched so bravely became scattered wreckage drifting in the void. When the skies were clear, the ground invasion began. Aaron descended to the surface with an observation team, staying behind human lines. What he witnessed his understanding of the gentle beings he had known for years. Human soldiers moved through cities like instruments of divine punishment. They targeted military installations, government buildings, and infrastructure with surgical precision. Their movements were coordinated through advanced communication systems that let entire battalions act as single units. But they were not monsters. That was what confused Aaron most of all. Sergeant Amy Grant led her squad through the Capital District. Her brother had died on 442B. She had watched the broadcast of his death. She had every reason to hate them with all her heart. Amy cleared 3 enemy positions without hesitation. Her movements were lethal and precise. When a wounded soldier reached for his weapon, she ended him instantly. When a sniper opened fire from a damaged building, she directed her team to neutralize the threat with ruthless efficiency. But when her squad encountered children hiding in a collapsed structure, Amy stopped. The children were terrified. They had lost their parents in the fighting. They expected the human soldiers to kill them. That was what warriors would have done. That was what their leaders had told them humans would do. Amy knelt beside the children and removed her helmet. She let them see her face. Her eyes were tired and sad, not cruel or hateful. "Medic," she called softly, "these kids are hurt. Let us help them." Human medics treated the children's injuries. Soldiers shared their water and rations. One Marine, a large man with scars across his face, pulled a small toy from his pocket and gave it to the youngest child. Then the squad moved on to their next objective, leaving the children in the care of humanitarian teams following behind the advance. This was humanity's terrible duality. They could kill without hesitation when necessary, but they could also show mercy to the innocent, even when those innocents belonged to the enemy. They did not hate all. They hated those who had chosen to murder defenseless people. The capital fell in 3 days. High Warlord was captured attempting to flee the planet. His guards had been killed or scattered. His generals had abandoned him. He was found hiding in an underground bunker, alone and pathetic. Human soldiers brought him before Admiral Burke in chains. The mighty warlord who had terrorized a quarter of the galaxy was forced to kneel in the ashes of his empire. "You cannot do this," said, his voice shaking. "The Galactic Assembly has laws, treaties, rules of warfare. You will be condemned for your actions here." Burke looked down at the broken warlord with eyes that held no warmth. "The Assembly will do nothing. They watched your broadcast. They saw what you did to our children. They will not shed tears for your empire." Tried to speak again, but Burke continued. "After we finish here, every civilization in this galaxy will understand one simple truth. You can be our friend, and we will give you everything we have. We will share our knowledge, our medicine, our protection. We will treat you as family." Burke's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire room. "Or you can be our enemy, and we will take everything you are. There is no middle ground. There is no second chance. Make your choice wisely, because you will only get to make it once." Was executed publicly. His generals followed. Every officer who had participated in the 442B massacre was hunted down and brought to justice. Some were killed in combat. Others were captured and tried before human courts. None were shown mercy. None were spared. The Dominion, an empire that had stood for 1,000 years, ceased to exist in less than 3 months. Aaron watched it all. He documented every battle, every victory, every moment of mercy, and every act of destruction. He wrote the truth so the galaxy would understand what had happened. Humanity had not wanted this war. They had tried to be good neighbors. They had offered friendship to anyone who would accept it. But when their kindness was repaid with murder, they had shown another side of themselves. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The Dominion was gone. Their fleet had been destroyed. Their military leadership had been executed or imprisoned. Their conquered territories had been liberated and placed under the protection of allied species. An empire that had terrorized countless worlds for 1,000 years had been reduced to ashes in less than 90 days. But humanity did not simply declare victory and return home. They had learned a painful lesson about the galaxy, and they intended to ensure no one would forget it. Admiral Burke, with full support from Earth's government, announced the creation of the Terran Protectorate. Any civilization that pledged peaceful cooperation would receive humanity's protection and aid. Human ships would patrol their borders. Human soldiers would defend their worlds. Human doctors and engineers would help them build better lives. Any civilization that chose aggression would face the same fate as The announcement sent shockwaves through the Galactic Assembly. Some species welcomed the new order. They had suffered under tyranny for generations and saw humanity as liberators. Others were uncertain, wondering if humans would prove to be just another empire demanding tribute and obedience. But most simply accepted the new reality. They had watched the war. They had seen what human wrath could accomplish. No one wanted to test whether their own defenses could fare better than this had. Aaron returned to space after the final battles ended. He had been away from home for months, documenting the greatest conflict in galactic history. He needed time to process everything he had witnessed. 3 weeks after his return, Commander Lisa arrived in territory aboard the Endeavour. Her ship still bore scars from the war. Plasma burns marked the hull. Entire sections had been patched with temporary repairs. The vessel that had once escorted refugee convoys had become an instrument of destruction. Aaron met Lisa at the spaceport. He expected to see the cold warrior who had helped destroy an empire. He prepared himself for someone changed beyond recognition by violence and loss. Instead, he saw the same woman who had laughed with children, the same commander who had risked her ship to protect those who could not protect themselves. Her eyes were tired, and new lines marked her face, but her smile was warm and genuine. "Aaron," Lisa said, embracing him like an old friend, "it is good to see you again." They walked through the streets of the capital city together. Citizens recognized Lisa and called out greetings. Children ran up to her asking if she remembered them. She knew most of their names. Eventually, they found a quiet garden overlooking the sea. They sat together on a stone bench as the sun set over purple waters. "We never wanted this," Lisa said after a long silence. Her voice was heavy with exhaustion and something that might have been grief. "We wanted to explore the stars, meet new civilizations, share our music and our stories and our dreams." She looked out at the ocean, and Aaron saw a profound sadness in her eyes. "We wanted to be good neighbors. We wanted to prove that kindness was not weakness. We wanted to build something beautiful with the species we met among the stars." Lisa picked up a small stone and turned it over in her hands. "But we will not let the innocent suffer while we have the power to stop it. We will not watch children die and do nothing. That is not who we are." Aaron asked the question that had haunted him throughout the war. How could humanity contain such contradictions? How could the same species produce healers and destroyers, artists and warriors? How could they show such boundless compassion and such absolute devastation? Lisa was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her words stayed with Aaron for the rest of his life. "Because we understand something that predators like the never learned. The universe is cold and dark and full of things that want to hurt us. It has always been that way. Our ancestors faced ice ages that should have killed them, diseases that nearly wiped them out, predators that hunted them for food." She smiled, but there was steel beneath the warmth. "So we built families, communities, tribes, nations. We learned to protect each other because alone we were weak, but together we were strong. We developed love not as a luxury but as a survival mechanism. We formed bonds with each other that nothing could break." Lisa threw the stone into the water and watched the ripples spread. "When you threaten our people, you are not facing soldiers or ships or weapons. You are facing billions of individuals who have decided that some things are worth dying for and worth killing for. You are facing a species that would burn down the galaxy to protect its children." She turned to Aaron, and her eyes held both gentleness and fire. "Be our friend, Aaron. Help us build something beautiful, because I promise you that is what we truly want. We are tired of war. We are tired of death. We are tired of watching good people suffer and die. We just want to live in peace with our neighbors and explore the wonders of the universe together." Aaron believed her. He could see the truth in her eyes. Humanity had not enjoyed the destruction they had unleashed. They had not celebrated the death they had dealt. They had simply done what they believed was necessary to protect those they loved and to ensure such horrors would never happen again. Over the following years, the Terran Protectorate grew into the dominant power in the galaxy. Human ships protected trade routes. Human engineers built infrastructure on developing worlds. Human doctors treated diseases that had plagued other species for centuries. But beneath all that kindness, the military remained ready. Fleets stood on constant alert. Soldiers trained for wars that everyone hoped would never come. Scientists developed weapons that they prayed would never be used. Because humanity had learned that peace was precious but fragile, it had to be defended by those willing to fight for it. And if the defenders were pushed too far, if their loved ones were threatened, if their children were harmed, they would rise up and unleash a fury that could shake the foundations of existence itself. Aaron completed his record of the human war and submitted it to the archives. He knew it would be studied by scholars and diplomats for generations to come. He hoped they would learn the right lessons from it. He ended his account with a simple warning for any species who might read his words in the future. Be kind to humanity, accept their friendship, return their generosity, work with them to build the peaceful galaxy they dream of creating. Because Aaron had seen what happened to those who chose otherwise. He had watched humans at their kindest, healing the sick and comforting the suffering. He had watched them at their most terrible, destroying everything in their path with methodical fury. He had seen them show mercy to children and execute war criminals without hesitation. He had witnessed them annihilate everything he thought he understood about strength and weakness. And he was grateful, every single day, that they had chosen to be humanity's friends. This was his testimony, his warning, his gift to the future. Learn from our history. Respect the gentle giants from Earth. Never forget what they are capable of when pushed beyond their limits. And above all else, never threaten their children. Because nothing remains of those who make that mistake. Nothing but ash and memory, and a lesson written in blood among the stars.